So, if you're still out in the hallway and waiting for the organ to say something about coming to church, it's not. It's me. We're going to sing in a moment or two. But if you're lurking out there saying, gee, I didn't hear the prelude, I wonder if it's going to start. You've heard the prelude. It was our little choir. So I need you to come in. And so many of you are here in an unusual way because it is Christmas Day as well as Sunday. And because of that, you're here because you want to be, not because you have to be. Because on Christmas Day, when I served my first church, almost 40 years ago, first time this happened, Christmas fell on a Sunday. And they said, well, shouldn't we cancel church? And I said, so you want me to cancel church because it's a religious holiday? 5 people came, but we had a good time. And while we are more than 5, we are not the teeming crowd that shows up on Christmas Eve. And we did have a good crowd last night, twice in fact. But I love you more because it wasn't because you should, it's because you wanted to. I think of words from William Shakespeare. This actually comes from Act 1, Scene 1 of Hamlet. We never hear this because we're so eager to get to the tragedy. But he writes, some say that ever... I'm so sorry, I was up late last night. Some say that ever 'gainst that season comes wherein our Savior's birth is celebrated. The bird of dawning singeth all night long, and then they say no spirit dares stir abroad. The nights are wholesome, then no planets strike, no fairy takes, nor witch hath power to charm. So hallowed and so gracious is the time. There is a certain calm for those of us who observe this day. Purchased by the frenzy of a month, purchased by the frivolity of the season, purchased by the festivity, but we come to this day, and suddenly we feel a kind of relaxation. And the peace that we talk about all the time, the peace that passeth understanding, for a moment actually exists. It actually does. Good morning. My name is Fred Wooden. I'm one of the clergy that serve here at Fountain Street Church. And of all the services I love, this is the one I love the most. It only happens once every 5 or 6 years, so it has the charm of rarity. I'm going to let you know that aside from this service, nothing else is going on at this church today, so you are to flee back to whatever place you call home, or if you're avoiding home, to take as long as it takes to get there. Because this building will close, and tomorrow we're taking an actual official holiday, so our staff who work very hard can be given that day off they deserve. But you're here now, and that's what matters most. I told a story to the little choir that was warming up, and I'll tell it to you as we get ready for our first hymn. Long ago and far away in the town of Groton, Massachusetts, where I served the little Unitarian church there. There were other churches in town, but there was also a famous boys' school, the Groton School, founded by one Endicott Peabody in the line of British boys' schools. And because it was very Anglican or Episcopalian, they had a chapel on site, a very large chapel, immense, competed with this building in length, and it was Gothic and severe and magnificent. And once a year they would do the fabled ceremony of lessons and carols, which if you see on television is filled with boy sopranos and choristers and candles and incense. It's just splendid. And a few of us local clergy would be invited to come along to read one of the 7 lessons. The chaplain, when he called upon me, asked me if I would do the passage that referred to the cockatrice's den and the hole of the asp. He asked me that because he knew I would pronounce the P on the end of asp. And so he lines me up with all the other clergy who trundle down the aisle, as a friend called it, in slovenly grandeur, all following behind a boy soprano who starts out by singing, once in royal David's city stood a lonely cow. And everybody goes, oh, it's so beautiful. And the chaplain leaned over to me, his confessor of the moment, and said, I hate this service. We don't have to feel that way. We can sing this song. And so we'll open our worship as a community by singing the first two verses. And I want you to imagine that a boy soprano is giving you your head start here. So gather your inner boy soprano or inner girl soprano, as the case may be. It is a beautiful song, and you'll find it as number 228. We'll sing just the first two verses. Miss Marilyn, would you help us sing? Go ahead and sit down. I love that last bit of text. So may we this happy morn honor every child that's born. That remains for me the hope of Christmas in our lives. That each year we come a little bit closer to revering every child, newborn or well experienced, with the same reverence we would give the infant Jesus. My service today is just a series of readings and a few remarks, very brief at the beginning, because I'm going to be giving an extended reading of the last part of Dickens' Christmas Carol. I read it aloud every year, and we didn't have time to get to the last part, so I'm going to give it to you. And I guarantee you will love hearing it aloud. The first passage, though, is from the wonderful British poet. She uses her first two initials, U.A. Fanthorpe. And this poem I discovered some years ago. It's brief, but I think it has a marvelous aspect. It's called BC:AD. This was the moment when before turned into after. And the future's uninvented timekeepers presented arms. This was the moment when nothing happened. Only dull peace sprawled boringly over the earth. This was the moment when even energetic Romans could find nothing better to do than counting heads in remote provinces. And this was the moment when a few farm workers and 3 members of an obscure Persian sect walked haphazardly by starlight straight into the kingdom of heaven. I love that poem. It speaks to several things, one of which is that we don't know when we pass a milestone, sometimes, do we? Frequently, we're only looking back and said, oh, that's when I was grown up. Oh, that's when we almost never notice the moment itself, as though somehow as we go through time there should be spots that tell you when you are who you are. There's still a few of those left when you're born and someone writes out a certificate. If you get married, that's a moment of some immense significance. And of course, when you die, but to a certain extent, you're not there for that. And so there are these questions. When do you know when you've reached a point in life, or when life itself has reached a point? I don't know. But the point of this poem is that the people who were there and the story, however the story happened, shepherds, innkeepers, magi, whatever we call them, didn't know they were making history. They didn't know. They were caught up in something bigger than themselves. They couldn't even see happening around them. They just know that something was going on. Have you ever been in a moment when you knew something was happening but didn't know quite what? When I talk to men, and I do mean men, who have served in war, the sense that I hear from them is that when it happened, they had no idea of the magnitude or the meaning of what was up. But they keep the memory because as they lived into their lives with that memory, its meaning became stronger and stronger. And so remembering becomes the thing we need to learn to do. I remind you, and I'm not the only one to remember, literally means to put back together. Because at the moment something happens, they're all discrete elements. But when we remember, we can assemble them into a coherent thing. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry notes that we do not live by things, but by the meaning of things. And meaning is what we discern in the moments of our lives. And over time, the meaning becomes deeper and wider. T.S. Eliot writes a beautiful poem I will not recite about the coming of the Magi. And it's written from the perspective of one of the magicians, who then is retelling the story after the fact, recounting it for you, the listener. And remembering, only in the remembering does its significance become apparent. And so think about other Christmases, the ones you didn't know meant anything until afterward. The first one, the last one. The one that felt disappointing because something didn't arrive or didn't happen. Or the one that you thought was going to mean everything and turned out to be ho and hum. We remember our lives into meaning. And if we have the possibility, we then hand that meaning on to others, who then get to wrap their memories around them. And so grows the flower, the tree, and the garden of that which matters most. We're going to sing again. This is one we don't usually do. I'm trotting out a couple of unusual carols because they're not popular. But this one is called a Sicilian carol. I'm picking all of them that have to do with Christmas Day, by the way, not with Christmas Eve, because we don't get to sing Christmas Day songs as much. Oh, thou joyful day. We're going to sing it. I think it says in the program that the choir is, but you're the choir, okay? You're all grown-ups in this house? All right. Let's remember, for all of us to sing, not for any of us to be, we're all here as participants, not as an audience. It's number 236. Shall we do it together? This time, why don't you just stay seated, okay? a ghost story. Actually, I'm telling you two ghost stories. The end of Christmas Carol is the end of a Christmas ghost story. But this is a poem by Dylan Thomas, and it's called Ghost Story. Bring out the tall tales now that we told by the fire as the gaslight bubbled like a diver. Ghosts wooed like owls in the long nights when I dared not look over my shoulder. Animals lurked in the cubbyhole under the stairs where the gas meter ticked. And I remember that we went singing carols once when there wasn't the shaving of a moon to light the flying streets. At the end of a long road was a drive that led to a large house. And we stumbled up the darkness of the drive that night, each one of us afraid, each one holding a stone in his hand in case, and all of us too brave to say a word. The wind through the trees made noises as of old and unpleasant, and maybe web-footed men wheezing in caves. We reached the black bulk of the house. What shall we give them? Hark the herald? No, Jack said. Good King Wenceslas. I'll count 3. 1, 2, 3, and we began to sing, our voices high and seemingly distant in the snow-felted darkness around the house that was occupied by nobody we knew. We stood close together near the dark door. Good King Wenceslas looked out on the feast of Stephen. And then a small, dry voice, like the voice of someone who had not spoken a long time, joined our singing. A small, dry, eggshell voice from the other side of the door, a small, dry voice through the keyhole. And when we stopped running, we were outside our house. The front room was lovely. Balloons floated under the hot water bottle gulping gas. Everything was good again and shone over the town. Perhaps it was a ghost, Jim said. Perhaps it was trolls, Dan said, who was always reading. Let's go in and see if there's any jelly left, said Jack. And we did that. Of course, we know who was on the other side of the door. Someone lonesome, someone unconnected, someone forgotten. You can hear the small, dry voice in your head, can't you? Singing from behind the door, plaintively trying to join the choir that appeared unrequested and unexpected. I think we sometimes have that sense ourselves, that if we were to sing quite loudly, people would run away. That's true in this church for sure. I've encouraged my congregation, sing. It says, make a joyful noise. You don't have to have perfect pitch to be joyful. But we have this notion that if we speak too loud from the heart, if we sing too exuberantly, if we bring too much of our affection out into the open, people will run away, scared by the small, dry, eggshell voice of our timidity. Every week that I conduct a prayer here, I lift up the names of those whose voices we only hear in our hearts now. People whose lives were conducted in our midst, and having died, they still remain with us as memories. And I spoke just a moment ago of remembering as a vital act of living. So when we remember the dead, we give voice, howbeit small and dry and eggshell, to those whose life forms our own. I do not speak the names of everyone because I only speak those who were members of this church of whom I knew. I mean, those reported to me. But you also have your own dead, the people behind the door, who at Christmas sing in your ear when you sing carols too. And so I lift up these ghosts, these goodly ghosts, these spirits that live behind the doors that we do not pierce because we are still alive. And our prayer always asks them to join our prayer with it, to sing along with us. And that we hope in the singing we do not flee when we hear their voices in our heads. I lift up this morning, especially for our memory and our cherishing, Mary Reardon and Leon Bile, John McHugh and Mary Hoke, John Yakey and Natalie Johnson. Whether these names are known to you, they're known to someone in this community. Whether you remember them or not, they are remembered by someone that you know. And so knit together is our lives, with those we've never met and those whose lives ended before we arrived. And yet together, we become one. And so I ask that we pause in a moment of gratitude for the small, dry, eggshell voices that live beyond the door of life. Those at some distance, physical or spiritual, that we may listen to them on this day, and ghosts though they may be, that they may give spirit and heart and hope to us in our times. Let us pray in silence for a moment on this and all that is of value, all that is precious on this Christmas day. In the liturgy of the synagogue, the dead are remembered with a prayer that begins with the words, El Melech Rachamim, thou who art merciful. And it says in part, may the one who is mercy give rest beneath the wings of your presence to those among us who have gone to their eternal rest. May they rest in peace. May we be at peace. And let us always say, Amen. Indeed. All right, we're going to sing again. This song, Bring a Torch, Jeanette Isabelle, is another Christmas Day song. It's very short. I am told that it was a great favorite of the minister's wife who preceded me by two. Was it Gertrude Little Fair's favorite hymn? So here's a ghost from our collective past. So I want you to give voice to her favorite hymn, which is a French one. It's only got a couple of verses, if I'm not mistaken. And the idea is to enjoy. We will not sing the French, okay? We will think in French, but we will sing in English, all right? Would Ms. Marilyn help us sing? We'll stay seated as we did last time. I think one of the reasons I like that song is it asks you to be quiet. We forget there's a baby involved. Shh, don't wake the baby. Anyone who's ever had a child, a baby, knows how precious their sleep is to the parent. And so we wish them to sleep, and we wish to enjoy them sleeping. But I like that. It has that little rest. Hush, hush. You could tell someone who was a mother wrote that song. Another reading. This one is just a passage. I believe, let's make sure I've got the right one in mind. Pick up the book. Aha, here we are. Clergy have many books of Christmas readings. It's one of our fatal flaws. We're always looking for new ways to do an old thing. This is a story in a collection of Christmas memories. And because it is Hanukkah, the first full day thereof, I'm telling a story written by Sam Levinson, a well-known Jewish American humorist and writer. It's many years old, so there might be a reference or two that's a bit obscure if you're less than 50, but you'll get it. 3 days before Christmas one year, when I was teaching Spanish at Tilden High School in Brooklyn, New York, there was more than the usual commotion among my students. I overheard snatches of whispered exchanges, and I gathered that a surprise present for the teacher was being discussed surreptitiously and somewhat anxiously. I didn't know how to go about discouraging the customary display of Christmas spirit that I knew they could not afford. Finally, uncertain myself how to begin, I asked, "All right, kids, what's up?" There was a long silence. At last, in the rear of the classroom, a timid little girl rose. "Mr. Levinson," she began, glancing around for encouragement in her decision. "We've got a problem." "Well, suppose you tell me about it, Gracie, and we'll see what's to be done." Her words came pouring out. It's your Christmas present, Mr. Levinson. We know just what we want to get you. We have it all picked out, and it's something you need, except... Well, except, I said. "Except, Mr. Levinson, we've only been able to raise $3, and..." No one in the room moved. Gracie stared shyly at the floor and whispered, "It costs $10. I glanced all around the class. All my students were sitting forward on their seats. It was a strange sight, for this was the only time during the entire term that my class gave me its undivided attention. There wasn't a face that didn't reflect Gracie's concern at the dilemma. "Mr. Levinson, we feel very badly. We feel very bad," I corrected her absent-mindedly. "We hope you'll understand." "Kids," I said, "the thought behind your gift actually means more to me than the gift itself. Your Merry Christmas wishes are all as..." Well, I stopped in the middle of my sentence. From my desk, I could see Gracie's eyes begin to fill with tears. I couldn't find the words to discourage the class from buying its teacher a present. I rummaged through my pockets and counted out $6 and a seventh in change. I walked over to Gracie's desk, put the money in her hand, and whispered in her ear, "You make a wonderful chairman." Then the Christmas spirit overcame me. "Class is dismissed," I said. After the room emptied, I sat at my desk, considering how I would raise the trolley fare to get home that evening. I had given the children my last penny. Suddenly, Mr. O'Hara, the principal, walked into my room, looking at me quizzically. "Mr. Levinson," he said, "as I was coming up the stairs, I was nearly bowled over by a pack of wild Indians. They wouldn't by chance be any of your students, would they?" I didn't hear the final bell. Sheepishly, I told Mr. O'Hara the whole story of my Christmas gift. He dipped into his wallet and handed me $1. "Here," he said, "treat yourself to a taxi home." When was the last time $1 got you anywhere in a taxi cab? It has the shades of O. Henry about it, doesn't it? That it turns out we end up giving each other gifts. But if we had kept them, we'd have the same stuff, right? And yet the exchange is what matters. It's Riley, that's the gift. The gift part is the act of caring about the other person. We could keep all the fun. We could do that. We could all just stay home and say, you pretend I sent you. But the actual exchange is the thing. And I think that's the part we sometimes forget in the wonderful commercialization of the holiday. And I rejoice for the retailer whose livelihood depends upon our willingness to purchase. But I have to think that when I push the button on my screen that pays for the thing that will go from the warehouse to the person, and I will never see the thing itself, and I won't be there when the person opens it, that something in the exchange has been diluted just a little bit. I don't know. There was a wonderful cartoon in the New Yorker, I think 1,000 years ago, that showed the three wise men on their camels going through the desert, each holding their gift. And one is saying to the other, "Mark my words, Melchior, this is going to get way out of hand." It is. But the good thing is, if you get old enough that your children are grown, your gifts become smaller and more precious. They really do. I love that arrangement. In some ways, it's more tender than the original. I feel like I'm rocking back and forth. It's the kind of version that you want to sing to a baby. So here we are at the end of a story you all know. Let me get you started. The spirit of Christmas yet to come stood among the graves of the churchyard and pointed down to one. He advanced toward it trembling, Scrooge did. The phantom was exactly as it had been, but he dreaded that he saw some new meaning in its solemn shape. "Before I draw nearer to that stone to which you point," said Scrooge, "answer me one question. Are these the shadows of the things that will be, or the shadows of things that may be only? Still the ghost pointed downward to the grave by which it stood. Men's courses will foreshadow certain ends to which, if persevered in, they must lead, said Scrooge. But if the courses be departed from, the ends will change. Say it is thus with what you show me. The spirit was as immovable as ever. Scrooge crept toward it, trembling as he went, and following the finger read upon the stone of the neglected grave his own name, Ebenezer Scrooge. Am I the man who lay upon the bed? He cried, upon his knees. The finger pointed from the grave to him and back again. Oh, spirit, no, no. The finger was still there. Spirit, he cried, clutching its robe. Hear me, I'm not the man I was. I will not be the man I must have been but for this intercourse. Why show me this if I'm past all hope? For the first time, the hand appeared to shake. Good spirit, he pursued, as down upon the ground he fell before it. Your nature intercedes for me and pities me. Assure me that I may yet change these shadows you have shown me by an altered life. The hand trembled. I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year. I shall live in the past, present, and the future. The spirits of all three will strive within me. I will not shut out the lessons they teach. Oh, tell me I may sponge away the writing on this stone. In his agony, he caught the spectral hand. It sought to free itself, but he was strong in his entreaty and detained it. The spirit, stronger yet, repulsed him. Holding up his hands in a last prayer to have his fate reversed, he saw an alteration in the phantom's hood and dress. It shrank, collapsed, and dwindled down into his bedpost. Yes, his bedpost. It was his own. The bed was his own. The room was his own. Best and happiest of all the time before him was his own to make amends in. I will live in the past, the present, and the future, Scrooge repeated as he scrambled out of bed. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. Oh, Jacob Marley, heaven and Christmas time be praised. I say it on my knees, old Jacob, on my knees. He was so flustered and so glowing with his good intentions that his broken voice would scarcely answer to his call. He had been sobbing violently in his conflict with the spirit, and his face was wet with tears. They aren't torn down, cried Scrooge, folding one of his bed curtains in his arms. They're not torn down. They're here. I am here. The shadows of the things that would have been may be dispelled. They will be. I know they will. His hands were busy with his garments all this time, turning them inside out, putting them on upside down, tearing them, mislaying them. I don't know what to do, cried Scrooge, laughing and crying in the same breath, making a perfect Laocoon of himself with his stockings. I'm as light as a feather. I'm as happy as an angel. I'm as merry as a schoolboy. I'm as giddy as a drunken man. A Merry Christmas to everybody. A Happy New Year to all the world. Hello, hello. He had frisked into the sitting room and was standing there, perfectly winded. There's the saucepan with the gruel, cried Scrooge, starting off again. There's the door by which the ghost entered. There's the corner where the ghost of Christmas presents sat. There's the window where I saw the wandering spirits. It's all right. It's all true. It all happened. Ha, ha, ha. Really, for a man who had been out of practice for so many years, it was a splendid laugh, a most illustrious laugh, the father of a long line of brilliant laughs. I don't know what day of the month it is, said Scrooge. I don't know how long I've been among the spirits. I don't know anything. I'm quite a baby. Never mind, I don't care. I'd rather be a baby. Hello! He was checked in his transports by the churches ringing out their lustiest peals. Clash, clash, hammer, ding, dong, bell, ding, dong, hammer. Oh, glorious, glorious. Running to the window, he opened it and put out his head. No fog, no mist. Clear, bright, jovial, stirring cold, 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 piping for the blood to dance to. Golden sunlight, heavenly sky, sweet fresh air, merry bells. Oh, glorious. What's today? Cried Scrooge, calling downward to a boy in his Sunday clothes, who perhaps had loitered to look in. Hey, returned the boy with all the might of his wonder. What's today, my fine fellow? Said Scrooge. "Today," replied the boy. "Why, Christmas Day." "It's Christmas Day," said Scrooge to himself. "I haven't missed it. The spirits did it all in one night." "Well, they can do anything they like. Of course they can. They're spirits." "Hello, my fine fellow." "Hello," returned the boy. "Do you know the poulterers in the next street but one at the corner?" Scrooge inquired. "I should hope I did," replied the lad. "An intelligent boy," said Scrooge. "A remarkable boy. Do you know whether they've sold the prize turkey that was hanging up there? Not the little prize turkey, the big one." "What, the one as big as me?" returned the boy. "What a delightful boy," said Scrooge. "It's a pleasure to talk to him. Yes, my book, that's the one. It's hanging there now," replied the boy. "Is it? Go and buy it." "What?" exclaimed the boy. No, Scrooge, I am in earnest. Go and buy it and tell them to bring it here, that I may give them directions where to take it. Come back with the man and I'll give you a shilling. Come back with him in less than 5 minutes and I'll give you half a crown. The boy was off like a shot. "I'll send it to Bob Cratchit's," whispered Scrooge to himself, rubbing his hands and splitting himself with a laugh. "He shan't know who sends it. It's twice the size of Tiny Tim." The hand in which he wrote the address was not a steady hand, but write it he did somehow, and went downstairs to open the street door, ready for the coming of the poulterer's man. As he stood there waiting his arrival, the knocker caught his eye. "I shall love it as long as I live," cried Scrooge, patting it with his hand. "I scarcely ever looked at it before. What an honest expression it has on its face. It's a wonderful knocker. Here's the turkey. Hello. How are you? Merry Christmas." It was a turkey. He could never have stood up upon his legs, that bird. It would have snapped him off in a minute like sticks of sealing wax. "Why, it's impossible to carry that to Camden Town," said Scrooge. "You must take a cab." The chuckle with which he said this, and the chuckle with which he paid for the turkey, and the chuckle with which he paid for the cab, and the chuckle with which he recompensed the boy were only to be exceeded by the chuckle with which he sat down breathless in his chair again and chuckled till he cried. Shaving was not easy, for his hand continued to shake very much, and shaving requires attention even when you don't dance while you're at it. But if he had cut the end of his nose off, he would have had a piece of sticking plaster over it and been quite satisfied. He dressed himself all in his best, and at last got out into the streets. The people were by this time pouring forth as he had seen with the ghost of Christmas present, and walking with his hands behind him. Scrooge regarded everyone with a delighted smile. He looked so irresistibly pleasant, in a word, that 3 or 4 good-humored fellows said, "Good morning, sir. Merry Christmas to you." And Scrooge often said afterward that of all the blithe sounds he had ever heard, those were the blithest in his ears. He had not gone far when, coming on toward him, he beheld the portly gentleman who had walked into his counting house the day before, and he had refused their entreaties for charity, I should point out. He walked into the Scrooge, and he sent a pang across his heart to think how this old gentleman would look upon him when they met. But he knew what path lay straight before him, and he took it. "My dear sir," said Scrooge, quickening his pace and taking the old gentleman by both hands, "how do you do? I hope you succeeded yesterday. It was very kind of you. A Merry Christmas to you." "Mr. Scrooge?" "Yes," said Scrooge, "that is my name, and I fear it may not be pleasant to you. Allow me to ask your pardon, and will you have the goodness," and here Scrooge whispered in his ear. "Lord bless me," cried the gentleman, as if his breath were taken away. "My dear Scrooge, are you serious?" "If you please," said Scrooge, "not a farthing less. A great many back payments are included in it, I assure you. Will you do me that favor?" "My dear sir," said the other, shaking hands with him, "I don't know what to say about such munificence." "Don't say anything. Come and see me. Will you come and see me?" "Oh, I will," said the old gentleman, and it was clear he meant to do it. "Thank you," said Scrooge. "I'm much obliged to you. I thank you 50 times. Bless you." He went to church and walked about the streets and watched the people hurrying to and fro, and patted the children on the head and questioned beggars, and looked down into the kitchens of houses and up to the windows, and found that everything could yield him pleasure. He had never dreamed that any walk, that anything could have given him so much happiness. In the afternoon he turned his steps toward his nephew's house. He passed the door a dozen times before he had the courage to go up and knock, but he made a dash and did it. Is your master at home, my dear?" said Scrooge to the serving girl. "Nice girl, very nice." "Yes, sir." "Where is he, my love?" said Scrooge. "He's in the dining room along with the mistress. I'll show you upstairs if you please." "Oh, thank you, he knows me," said Scrooge, with his hand already on the dining room lock. "I'll go in by myself, my dear." He turned it gently and sidled his face in round the door. They were looking at the table, which was spread out in great array, for these young housekeepers are very serious on such points and like to see that everything is right. "Fred," said Scrooge. Dear heart alive, how his niece was startled. Scrooge had forgotten for the moment that she was sitting in the corner with the footstool and wouldn't have seen him coming in. "Why, bless my soul," said his nephew Fred. "Who's that?" "It's I, your Uncle Scrooge. I've come to dinner if you'll let me in." Let him in. It is a mercy he didn't shake his arm off. He was at home in 5 minutes. Nothing could be heartier. His niece looked just the same. So did Topper when he came. So did the plump sister when she came. So did everyone when they came. Wonderful party, wonderful games, wonderful unanimity, wonderful happiness. But he was early the next morning. Oh, he was early there. If he could only be there first and catch Bob Cratchit coming late. That was the thing he set his heart upon. And he did it. Yes, he did. The clock struck 9. No Bob. 1:15. No Bob. He was a full 18 minutes and a half behind his time. Scrooge sat with his door wide open that he might see him come into his tank. His hat was off before he opened the door, his comforter too. He was on his stool in a jiffy, driving away with his pen as if he were trying to overtake 9 o'clock. "Hello," growled Scrooge in his accustomed voice, as near as he could pretend. "What do you mean, coming in this time of day?" "I'm very sorry, sir," said Bob. I am behind my time." "You are?" repeated Scrooge. "Yes, I think you are. Step this way, sir, if you please." "It's only once a year, sir," pleaded Bob, appearing. It shall not be repeated. I was making rather merry yesterday, sir." "Now, I'll tell you what, my friend," said Scrooge. "I'm not going to stand for this thing any longer. And therefore," he continued, leaping from his stool and giving Bob such a dig in his waistcoat that he staggered back into the tank again, "and therefore I'm about to raise your salary." Bob trembled and got a little nearer to the ruler. He had a momentary idea of knocking Scrooge down and holding him and calling to the people in the court for help. "A Merry Christmas, Bob," said Scrooge with an earnestness that could not be mistaken. As he clapped him on the back, he said, "A merrier Christmas, Bob, my good fellow, than I have given you for many a year. I'll raise your salary and endeavor to assist your struggling family, and we will discuss your affairs this very afternoon over a Christmas bowl of smoking bishop, Bob. Make up the fires and buy another coal scuttle before you dot another I, Bob Cratchit." Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father. He became as good a friend, as good a master, and as good a man as the good old city of London ever knew, or any good old city, town, or borough in the good old world. Some people laughed to see the alteration in him, but he let them laugh and little heeded them, for he was wise enough to know that nothing ever happened on this globe for good at which some people did not have their fill of laughter at the outset. And knowing that such as these would be blind anyway, he thought it quite as well they should wrinkle up their eyes in grins as have the malady in less attractive forms. His own heart laughed, and that was quite enough for him. He had no further intercourse with spirits, but lived upon the total abstinence principle ever afterward. And it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well. If any man alive possessed the knowledge, may that truly be said of us, and all of us. And so, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, every one. I find it hard to get to the end of that. Get all choked up. Isn't it curious that we still think of him as a miser even though he goes through this complete transition? But it would be an honor to be known as an Ebenezer Scrooge in the Reformed sense of the word, wouldn't it? Are you happy this Christmas? I am, and I can't quite explain it. Which is to say, I'm old and I see the world as it is, and I've come upon the answer. You must choose to be happy. It is not something you get. It is not something you get bestowed upon you. It is a choice. And a happiness that does not deny the difficulties of the moment, that does not deny the realities of the world. It is a choosing, as Scrooge did, to make Christmas a part of your day-to-day life. You will be ridiculed. There's no question. Yesterday, as I'm walking into the social hall with my children behind me, grown sons, one of them with his lovely fiancée, I started spouting off a psalm, one I like a lot. And he said, "Who are you and what have you done with my father?" Yes, I was quite ridiculous. But sometimes being worthy of ridicule, which is what ridiculous means, is what it looks like when you act the way you are told you should act rather than the way other people tell you you ought. Should meaning morally correct, ought is what people tell you to be. I was undignified. I stumbled over the whole day yesterday. And yet, there was joy in me then and now. And if the price of joy is to look foolish, I say amen. Because dignity that has no joy is merely stuffiness. So be joyful, no matter how ridiculous it makes you look. If you go spouting psalms or singing carols, if you go about trying to shave and cutting off the tip of your nose, if you find yourself laughing and crying at the same time, go for it. That's what the spirits were intended to do. I think I've said enough. It is Christmas Day. You're already in and wondering, when am I going to be able to get home and have my supper, open my stockings, turn on the football game, God save us everyone. Turn off the news if you have any sense whatsoever. But I've said enough. Most of the words have been those of others who speak more wisely than I ever can. If you keep those and not mine, the gift is yours forever and ever. It is an honor to have your presence on this, my Christmas Day. I hope that you will find this time to have been a blessing upon yours. And once again, let us go to Royal David City and make this hour one of worship and joy. Blessing I've given all of my congregations my entire life for this day. May the night that is Christmas embrace you. May the light that is Christmas entrance you. May the cold that is Christmas chill you. May the warmth that is Christmas fill you. May the song that is Christmas be a gift to you. May the work that is Christmas be lifted from you. May the promise that Christmas has taken you make the hope that is Christmas awaken you. So many hopes, so many desires. Be they true today, and if not today, then tomorrow, because every day is a day which the Lord has made. Let us ever rejoice and be glad in it. Merry Christmas to one and all. Amen. Thank you.